I've been riding and testing this Kawasaki KLE500 for a couple weeks now. I've taken it into the backcountry, dodged predators, quite literally saw a cougar, gotten lost, run it on single track and OHV trails, absolutely bottomed out the suspension off of a very small jump, and generally tried to do all the things anyone who is interested in buying this bike might want to do after they purchase it. I feel like I've got enough time on the bike now to put together my full KLE500 review, and I have to take it back, so here we go. Huge thanks before I jump in to Power Motorsports and Sublimity for loaning me this bike out of their own inventory. They did not charge me for the loan and basically gave me free rein to test it out as I saw fit. Not many dealerships would do that, and I'm very thankful for our great relationship. Check out Power at powermotorsports.com. They sell a ton of different brands. Their website pricing is actually accurate without hidden fees, and they ship nationwide. Check them out if you're looking for a new or used bike. Ask for Matt and tell him Dork sent you. As always, when we review a new bike, let's talk about stats and specs first. The 2026 Kawasaki KLE500 has a 451cc liquid-cooled 4-stroke parallel twin. Yes, the 500 has a 451cc motor. That may be the biggest jump I've seen. They're never exactly accurate, but we're talking 10%. That's a lot. Claimed 51 horsepower at 10,000 RPMs, 31.7 pound-feet of torque. It has a 6-speed transmission with an assist and slipper clutch, a 43mm inverted fork on the front with 8.3 inches of travel. Rear suspension is a Unitrack gas-charged shock with 7.7 inches of travel. Wheels, 21 inches at the front, 17 inches at the rear. It has a ground clearance of 7.3 inches. The seat height is a manageable 34.3 inches. Curb weight, 427.8 pounds for the standard edition, 430 even for the SE. Fuel capacity is 4.2 gallons, and the MSRP on this bike is $65.99 US for the standard edition and $74.99 for the SE. Differences between the SE and the regular model: both versions have smartphone connectivity and an LED headlight and a taillight. With the SE model, you get a better 4.3-inch full-color TFT display, all LED lighting including turn signals, taller adjustable windscreen, handguards, and a larger aluminum skid plate. Just gonna tackle the elephant in the room right off the bat. Much has been made about the limited ground clearance and limited suspension travel of this motorcycle. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it isn't a concern, because it definitely makes a difference, but I do not think it is anywhere near the deal breaker that it's been made out to be. Let's talk about what I like about this bike after a few hundred miles on it. The KLE500 has a very smooth, very approachable power delivery. It is not surprising, it is linear and predictable. It does not have power modes or other useless and complicated crap to fiddle with. It is a motorcycle with ABS, pure and simple. It has a big, easy to find ABS disable switch on the handlebars. It looks great overall, the whole bike, not just the switch, in my opinion. It feels very nimble and narrow as you ride it. It is one of the most stable motorcycles I've ever ridden off the pavement, yet it is still fun to throw into the corners on the twisties. It's reliable. This Ninja 500 motor is a proven platform from a trusted brand. The dealer support is off the charts, very, very good. The build quality is incredibly solid. It's very thoughtfully designed. You can tell a lot of thought and R&D went into putting this motorcycle together. It also has very sturdy seats that can absolutely handle a drop from a height of 3 feet, despite what all the pearl clutchers in the comments of the new bike day video keep raving and ranting about. You can take off a motorcycle seat and drop it from a minimal height without destroying it. Trust me, there was no explosions when I did that. So very sturdy seats. Well done, Kawasaki. I tested that thoroughly. I expected this bike to be really revvy and have a weird power delivery, not really based on anything other than the fact that the Versys X300 also has a Ninja motor, and it's really revvy and doesn't really make any power until you get very high in the rev range, but I'm happy to report it's not like that. They've tweaked it. The mid-range is a little better, and while the low end is not like insanely torquey, it's not a KLR, it's not gonna tractor like all day long, it's pretty good, and it's pretty easy to ride, and you're not dealing with wildly different amounts of power depending on where you are in the revs. The windscreen is adjustable, which I like, though I wish it was adjustable on the fly. That is kind of rare, but at least you have the option to move it up permanently if you want to. It has a GPS bar that's solid. It's not bouncing all over the place. That's very nice to have on an adventure bike to mount your phone or a GPS. The standing position on this bike is very comfortable. It feels very narrow between the knees. It's easy to grip. The bars are in a great position. I think it's a great height because it's comfortable enough to encourage new riders to stand up and start to build their standing stamina without requiring them to bend over a ton, keep their lower back engaged, and fatiguing you quickly and until you develop those muscles. It may be a little higher than it should be for super aggressive riding, but this bike is not made for super aggressive riding, so I'm gonna let that one slide. The screen on the SE is very bright and incredibly easy to read in all conditions. Important information is readily accessible, and there are a ton of different types of info you can get. Average miles per gallon, average miles per hour, real-time miles per gallon, fuel range, etc. Although we'll talk about the fuel range in the dislikes section. The clutch action is very smooth. That assist and slipper clutch works great, making it even easier and more approachable for newer or less experienced riders. It's just a pleasure to ride. It's super easy to ride. The stock wind protection with this SE windscreen is great in the high position, some of the best I've ever experienced, and this bike is a great value for the money. It is a huge amount of motorcycle for $7 grand. You can do pretty much everything short of hitting black diamond trails and anything that requires more than 8 inches of ground clearance, which most new riders are not going to run up against. But it's not perfect, so let's talk about what I don't like about it. One, cardinal sin on an ADV bike these days, no ambient temperature gauge, but worse than that, there is no USB or 12-volt charger on this bike. Every other bike in my garage, except the DRZ, which I'm going to give it a pass because it's a dual sport, comes with some kind of charger. It's sort of necessary equipment on an adventure bike, on a bike that you're gonna spend any amount of time exploring new places. You need to be able to charge a phone or a GPS. Not only that, but Kawasaki does offer an option in their parts catalog. It is $98 and it mounts under the seat. What the hell is that? It does not cost you $98. It should be a dash option like the KLR. You can buy a battery tender USB charger that connects directly to your battery for 25 bucks, and even that's overpriced in my opinion. So big miss there on the no USB charger. On the SE, you couldn't even include it on the SE. Come on, everybody does that. Except you, apparently, Kawasaki. It has a 17-inch rear wheel, which is not a deal breaker, but it does limit your tire options somewhat, and it gives you a little bit less ground clearance. Makes the bike sit even lower. Not a ton, but like the first thing that the Outback Motor Tech guys were saying is we're gonna do a real build on this, and we're gonna swap the rear to an 18. There's a reason. I'm no engineer, but I would prefer 18. Stock tires are fine. They're better than I expected, but if you're gonna spend any time in the mud or the sand, you're gonna wanna upgrade. But they're fantastic on the road. You don't even really notice. They're not knobby, but they are a 50-50 tire, but they ride like a street tire. I got constant false neutrals on this bike between 4th and 5th gear. I would put it in 5th, give it gas, and it would pop out all the way or pop back down to 4th more than once. It's weird. It was only there between 4th and 5th. So I don't know how the transmission is designed, but it's happening more on this bike than it has on pretty much any other bike I've ever ridden. So that was weird. A big con, in my opinion, is that it sounds like a Ninja 500. That's probably not a huge con for most people, especially if you don't know the difference, but definitely sounds like a street bike when you rev it up. A little anemic sounding. It has a low front fender. That's, again, not a deal breaker, just my personal preference is a high front fender. Concern with a low front fender is that you're gonna get mud or something caked in there, and eventually it's gonna cause the front wheel to stop turning. We had that problem on the Himalayan 450 press tour when we had to take all of our front fenders off. There's a decent amount of clearance here, but I would just like to see a tall front fender option. I prefer that. The fuel range indicator, which is great that it has, but the damn thing is like chaotic as hell. I rode yesterday with a full tank, which theoretically at 4.2 gallons should give me easily over 200 miles, if not more like 250, 260. And it never read over like 130 miles, even though I had a full tank. I'd rather it was conservative, to be honest, but it's just not really useful for planning. It's a little bit chaotic. I would use it as a general guideline, but I wouldn't live and die by it. This bike has no rear rack or grab handles for luggage mounting, which a lot of new adventure bikes come with something back there, so you can at least put a tail bag or have a rear anchor point for your luggage if you want to carry luggage. So that's disappointing. I know the aftermarket will take care of it, but it'd be nice to have some kind of factory option for mounting something, even just a strap to hold luggage on. It does not have that. I had to go with the soft rack from Green Chili, and thank God I had that, or I wouldn't have been able to put anything back there. The seating position feels like you're sitting in the bike rather than on it. Again, personal preference, but I prefer to be on top of a bike. Feels like it's easier to move it around underneath me when I'm riding off-road. The SE skid plate and handguards are a very thin aluminum. They are not confidence-inspiring. Most bikes like this with stock handguards and skid plate are plastic. These aluminum ones are much better, but it's a very thin aluminum. It's not gonna stand up to a ton of drops. It's gonna bend and eventually break. It's great to get you started. It's great if you're not doing anything super crazy. You're not dropping the bike very often or scraping that skid plate. But if you wanna do anything moderately difficult with a moderate danger of becoming difficult, you're gonna wanna upgrade those pretty much immediately. The ABS doesn't stay off when you cycle the key. That's a pet peeve. Some bikes do, some bikes don't. I just wish it would. The suspension is not adjustable and it's kind of soft, at least in the front. I bottomed it going through potholes more than once. Like taking it off a jump and bottoming it is one thing, but like bottoming out in a pothole, going 35 miles an hour up a gravel road, that's pretty soft. The big con that you were waiting for is ground clearance. Ground clearance is lacking. Suspension travel makes it possible to slap the skid plate on the ground because you've got as much suspension travel in the rear as you do ground clearance. I know that because I did it multiple times with minimal effort. I went off a very small jump, not even a foot high. I barely got the rear tire off the ground and it landed with a very solid, very not confidence-inspiring crunch. If you're gonna spend any time where that skid plate is vulnerable, you're gonna want a new skid plate almost immediately. The exhaust is right underneath it, so if the skid plate gets compromised, you're gonna screw up your exhaust pretty much guaranteed. If you're gonna be running that skid plate across anything ever, you're gonna wanna upgrade it pretty much immediately, even the SE version. This lack of ground clearance and suspension travel is always going to be in the back of your mind with this bike. That's one big disadvantage of it. You're always gonna have to think about your line choice. This bike will get you through most normal and even some above average difficulty terrain, but you aren't gonna be able to do it as carefree and mindless as you would on a taller bike, but that is not what this bike is for. This bike is gonna be more than adequate for the types of adventures a new rider will go on purpose, and it will get you through the harder stuff you end up going through by accident, in most cases. The limitations are annoying, and it's potentially gonna cause more damage in certain situations, but is it going to stop you from going where you need to go? I don't think so. I don't think it will, and it's been made out to be that, and that's not what it is. The engine feels like it's working harder than it should at highway speeds, but I either got used to it or the bike loosened up a little as I rode it. It became less of a concern as I rode more miles. Yesterday on the way back, I hardly noticed it the way that I did the first day when I took it out, so grain of salt it. And honestly, the biggest con for me is that it's just a little boring to ride, as an experienced rider anyway. It's very hard to get the rear tire loose. It's not very fast, even at full throttle. It's just easy and calm and consistent, like a stable, old, reliable mare that has been ridden for years and knows exactly what it's going to do and how to take care of its rider, but does not do anything exciting or surprising. It is great for a new rider, but I do not think it's particularly exciting for an experienced one. So one of the big questions people are going to have is, which version should I get? Should I get the regular or should I get the SE? If you're just going to be exploring forest roads, taking road trips, and going camping now and then, you can probably get away with the SE's very thin skid plate and handguards, and honestly, I think it's worth it for the upgraded display and the larger windscreen. So if you're just going to do mild things, at least for a while, I think you can just get the SE and be good. It's good for you to do most of what you want to do right out the door. It'll protect your levers in a minor drop. It'll protect your exhaust and your engine and your oil pan in minor scrapes or even jumping and slapping the skid plate on the ground, which I did. There's not a mark on it, so it does okay for that kind of thing. So if your adventures are going to be mild, at least at first, I think the SE is going to have adequate protection, and there's enough other advantages like the better display that it's worth the extra money. But if you're planning on upgrading the skid plate and handguards anyway, and you can live without the color screen, then the regular version is probably the better value and better starting point for a build. So I would say the SE is more of a terminal option, like I'm gonna get it and just ride it as is, but if you're gonna do a build, you might wanna start with the regular edition. My guess is it's gonna come down to what the dealer has in stock and what colors they like better for most people. I think you could spend the $900 difference and get a better skid plate and handguards than it comes with, but I don't think there's a clear winner one way or the other. It just depends on your budget, plans for the bike, color preference, and how much $900 one way or the other means to you personally. Final conclusions, how do I feel about this bike after 2 weeks riding it? What do I think of it? What would I recommend? Would I recommend it? Well, first, one point I want to make is that y'all know I'm a big fan of the Kawasaki KLR650. It's a classic. It is like almost a rite of passage in the world of ADV. Everyone I know seems to have owned one. It's a great bike, and I'm so happy it exists and has existed for years. But this bike, the KLE500, has left me confused as to Kawasaki's intentions for the KLR's continued existence. The KLE500 is lighter, cheaper, at least the base model, way better on the road, and a hell of a lot more modern. It kind of feels like this bike is Kawasaki putting the KLR out to pasture. The KLR has its cult following and it is one hell of a unique bike, but for a newer rider looking for their first ADV, there is pretty much no circumstance where I would recommend a KLR over this KLE500. So I worry for the future of the beloved KLR. My final conclusion is that this bike is not exciting. It's not meant to be. The people judging it and crying so many internet tears over a bike they've never even ridden are judging it by the wrong standards. There's a famous quote often attributed to Albert Einstein, although that's debatable that he ever actually said it, but the quote is this: "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid." If you are expecting this bike to compete with the KTMs and Aprilias of the world, it's going to fall flat. But this bike costs half as much as any of those, and it's intended for a very different rider. Judging this bike against an 890 is like comparing a Toyota Corolla to a Corvette. Of course it's going to come up short. This bike is not supposed to be the unicorn light adventure bike that can also tear up the most difficult terrain. If you're an experienced rider, this bike is not for you. The KLE500 is aimed squarely at the fastest growing segment of the motorcycling industry, brand new ADV riders. For that segment, it is hard to beat. It's cheap, reliable, has a very manageable seat height, not too much power, it has decent electronics without being overcomplicated, it is very light for an ADV bike, has outstanding dealer support, and a proven engine platform from a trusted Japanese brand. Everyone keeps asking me how it compares to the other small ADV bikes coming out these days, like the Himalayan 450, the KTM 390, the Ibex 450, etc., etc., etc. Each of those machines does something better than the KLE500. In terms of capability, it's not the best at anything. It doesn't have the best suspension travel, it doesn't have the most power, it doesn't have the most ground clearance, it does not have the best electronics. If that's what you're after, look elsewhere. However, you're a new rider looking for the fewest possible friction points on your journey into the world of ADV, the KLE500 does that better than any of its competitors. If all you want to do is ride without worrying about weird engine dynamics, too much power, overcomplicated modes, reliability concerns, lack of dealer support, twitchy and inconsistent stability, too much weight or seat height, or any of 1,000 other concerns that new riders have, it is impossible to beat the KLE500. Yes, the ground clearance is a concern, but the intended rider is not going to run up against that limitation much, if at all. If you want to jump it, take it off foot-tall ledges, and blast through the most technical terrain, get something else. It's not only a great first ADV bike, it's a great first bike overall. It's gentle and easy to ride so you can focus on building your skills without crapping your pants and low siding if you give it too much gas in a corner on a gravel road. I'd recommend it even if you have no intention of leaving the pavement. It's comfortable and manageable and forgiving and a great way to learn to ride a motorcycle. I still think and will always think the best way into the world of ADV riding is to buy a dual sport first and learn on it, but if you're dead set on starting on an ADV bike, or you already know how to ride but want to transition into a more 50-50 on-off-road riding lifestyle, then the KLE500 is very hard to beat. It is a fantastic first bike that will take you from your first day on gravel to your first BDR with ease. I personally find it a little boring, and I think a lot of you experienced riders will as well, but 2018 Ben, man, he would have been far better off with this KLE500 than he was with that Africa Twin he was in no way ready for. This bike is absolutely perfect for the rider for whom it is intended, and the people that are hating on it are not the people for whom it was intended. It's a very solid choice, and I highly recommend it to any newish rider looking to get into ADV. Thanks again to Power Motorsports and Sublimity for the opportunity to borrow and test this bike. Really cool of them. I'll link the website in the description. It's a great dealership to work with. I bought multiple bikes there and have no problem recommending them. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel because I want to be your internet riding buddy, and I'm better than your regular riding buddy because I come with a mute button. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Excellent!